Hello and welcome to Adobe Live here on Behance. I am Aaron Nace with Flern.com, and I'm so excited to be introducing our artist today, Wini Lao. Wini is an incredible product photographer. She also does still life and lifestyle work, and looking at her work is just so refreshing. I love her use of light and shadow. It just has like a timeless appeal to it. Her work is super clean, and we're gonna be working on actually compositing some different images together and working on some new projects with Wini. I'm so excited to have you here with me. Wini, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Aaron? How are things?
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm so excited about today's stream. Can you tell everyone a little bit about what we're going to be working on today?
Yeah. So my name is Winnie. As you guys know, product photographer. So a little bit like extending a little bit more about myself, Aaron. Today, we're going to be doing a lot of compositing work, a lot through starting from Lightroom, just like some quick edits. From there, from Lightroom, we'll go over to Photoshop where we kind of do more detailed editing. So, and then we'll kind of bring some photos in together, mainly leaning on the product photography side. So that's kind of what we'll be doing today.
Awesome. I'm so excited. For those of you who are joining us on YouTube or any other platform, be sure to head over to Behance so you can join us in the chat. And speaking of the chat, it's so great to see you guys joining us. Send us a comment right here on the right-hand side. We've got our chat going on. Oliver Andrews says, hi, Winnie and Aaron, with a big clap. Sam Peterson in the chat, Robert Wennerberg. It's so great to see everyone joining us for today. So the fantastic thing, obviously, about us being live is that as you have questions for Winnie, you can ask them right in the chat. I'll be monitoring that this entire stream, so I can relay your questions and comments and feedback. So be sure to give us, some good thumbs up and support. That's the fantastic thing about these live streams. Now, if you haven't already done so, you can start your day off with the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges. These are awesome. They're posted by Voodoo Val every single weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific, and you can challenge yourself with a new prompt every single day. So if you're a beginner just kind of getting started with either Photoshop or Lightroom, these are fantastic ways to kind of like get an introduction to the program and also be introduced to amazing artists like Voodoo Val. I am so excited for today's stream, and I'll hand it over to you, Winnie. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, Aaron, so much. Hi, everyone. So I'm Winnie. I create a lot of bright and vivid imagery, as Aaron kind of mentioned. My style of imagery is very clean. My goal is to bring an element of light and shadows so that we can kind of create some architectural elements to my photos. So you'll see a lot of that in the themes of a lot of my photos too. And yeah, so let's kind of get started.
Nice.
But yeah. First, you guys can kind of follow my work on Instagram, Wini Lao Photos, or if you want to shoot me an email, hello@winilao.com. So that's the best way to kind of reach me after this. So let's kind of get started. So as I mentioned, the photos that we'll be editing today, I'm going to start in Lightroom. I think of Lightroom as kind of where I start with my global edits, kind of where I want to color correct my images, or if I want to do any light global adjustments that kind of affect the whole image. And then I bring it to Photoshop later, in which I adjust very little micro details. But with product photography, so this is kind of what we're going to be editing today. I have a kind of some fragrances from a past photo shoot that I kind of brought in to kind of create some fun architectural elements back with it, playing with a little bit of light, but we're going to make it look a lot better than this look right here, and yeah.
I love that we can see like the before, because I know your work is so beautiful and polished, but this gives us hope that, it doesn't have to look absolutely perfect straight out of camera.
Exactly. And for me, actually, I'm self-taught. So half the battle for me is not knowing how to do half the things and trying to figure it out along the way. Knowing like, okay, my paper, my paper that I'm using for the photo shoot, doesn't extend all the way. How do I clean that up? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the compositing work we're doing today, I brought in about 5 to 6 images so that I can kind of gather them all today and bring out the brightness of the photo. Because the hardest part is when we're playing with shadows, there are a lot of darker areas, and you want to bring that up with photo compositing. So this is kind of the image that we'll kind of start with. And then each image has their own purpose and their own goals so that we can kind of bring them all together. So let me just make this one a little bigger.
Awesome. Yeah. And did you work with a stylist on this, or is this all of like you placing these elements for the composition?
It's all me. And I think because there's really not like too much going on, I kept it really minimal. It was really easy to kind of place things a little bit, but also at the same time, not having a stylist takes a much longer time because it's me figuring out how to place my tripod and my lighting, and also me trying to figure out, okay, photography, what can I do? But it's kind of zen. I just sit in my studio and kind of play with things as I'm kind of dreaming of it.
Nice. I haven't done a lot of product photography, but I've done a little bit of it, and it is like very zen. It's like you can kind of take your time and, create a little scene and change your lighting around. And I find it to be so peaceful.
Yeah, same as well, especially because I feel like sets are smaller, so then you can really think things through. So for example, when I photographed this first image, I looked at it to just kind of see like, hey, what are some elements that I kind of want to change here that I want to bring out in post-editing work. So one thing I kind of want to bring up is because I was using a macro lens for this shot, there's going to be some focusing issues. So in post, when I composite everything later, I'm going to also add some focus stacking. So making sure that like right now you can kind of see this image is really sharp, but then this bottle is not sharp. So when you're doing commercial work, you want to make sure everything's like really sharp as best as you can. And the beauty of product photography is you can kind of take that time while I'm shooting to kind of look like, hey, I see this is really sharp, but then if I move here, this is not. So I can take a moment and say, how can I adjust that?
Yeah. And are you just using like a manual focus ring to like focus on one bottle versus the other? Or what's your technique for getting both bottles in focus for focus stacking?
So I have a Sony camera that I kind of just touched a screen on.
Nice.
Little shortcuts. So what I do is, I press the little touch screen to get that amazing grace right there in focus. Then in a couple of images later, you'll see this one is more in focus. So we kind of get a little bit of that. So I'm breaking down this image, looking into almost 2 parts. I want to get this bottle looking great. I want this to look good. And then for the second part, I want this bottle to look good and this bottle and this sphere to look great. So I'm kind of breaking it down to 2 parts in how I would edit this. And that's exactly what I did here. So we have that first image. This is kind of like my base. This is the canvas.
Okay.
And then this is the second image that I'm kind of working with, where it's really super in focus. And what I have here is I've kind of brightened this up a little bit. As you can tell, we don't really have the reflection of the other bottle anymore. And I'm also creating kind of like a little, just creating some depth here as well. And the next image, I've brightened up the perfume bottle completely, just bouncing some light using a whiteboard and getting that to look true to life, more of a pink. And for the second part, in which I'm kind of editing the second bottle here, I've changed my focus stacking, in which I've gotten the second bottle to look a little more sharp. And I've also added some, just to make sure the background kind of looks good, just brightening up the bottle a little bit, getting some really nice kind of color here as well. And the last image that we'll use for the compositing is this right here, adding a foam board in the back just to kind of get a fun reflection here so that it's not as busy as it is here.
That makes sense. So as you're looking through these pictures, are you kind of, can you talk us through the process of identifying like the weaknesses of the images and like how you go about
Yeah,
making
yeah.
those things better.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you said weaknesses, and mainly because um I wouldn't think them as weaknesses. I just think they're things that I personally, because every single artist has their own perspective of what they want to improve, and identifying that is the hardest. And from personal experience of just kind of editing and shooting, I realized later on, like, okay, I'm editing the sphere, but I really wish that the sphere was clear. Like, I wish it was a
Mm,
little more crisp. And that's how I remember for later on as I'm shooting, okay, remember to it's through experience of just kind of like knowing, like, okay, I must clean this out a little bit, because I always tell myself that if you do it in person, if you move things in person, you save hours later in Photoshop. So that's kind of how I think of it.
it's so true. Yeah, Photoshop's a great tool, but if you can get it to look really good in camera, it's much easier.
Yeah, yeah, that's the goal. And part of it is also sticking to my branding, sticking to how I want the image to look like. So when I want a photo to look really bright, I know that I have to bring in a lot of various lighting in, whether that's in person, getting initial light, um, making sure that this was more lit, making sure it was
Hmm.
more bright. And part of it was recognizing that, like, okay, maybe I can do this in post versus doing it in person. So there's also that balance too. So it's kind of just little things that I think about when I'm shooting.
That's so cool. And it's cool to see that like um, compositing is such an essential part of the process and that you think about the composite while you're photographing as well.
Yeah, yes, exactly. There are certain things that while this is on a tripod, I really want to be able to get it so that later on, I don't have to think about, sudden movements or anything like that. And I can actually easily composite everything together. Yeah, I'm going to start editing,
Let's do it.
where first things first, I kind of have a gray card in the back so that I can kind of get the right colors in. So I'm just going to grab that color right there. Pretty happy with that. And then I'm just going to apply it all.
So you're using the white balance tool there and then just
Yes.
syncing that with the rest of the photos in Lightroom, which is so nice.
Yes, it makes it so much easier when all of these images are under the same lighting, and all I really need to do is make sure they're all kind of consistent throughout, especially for white balance. So, I mean, same thing here. So this one, I really used it for the gray card to make sure it's white balance, but I'm going back to our primary image, in which I'll kind of adjust a global edit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to start from top down, from exposure. I obviously, based off of kind of like my style of photos, I want it to be really bright. So I'm just going to increase that exposure a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of get that. I know as we're increasing the exposure, I am losing the details of this white background here. So I'm going to lower the highlights a little bit, as much as I can. Maybe sometimes I'll lower the exposure a little bit and just bring out some shadows. That usually kind of helps with the way that I edit. So let me increase that a bit, as well as increasing some whites, maybe lowering it a little bit here and decreasing some blacks a little bit, upping the clarity, just because that always kind of makes things a little sharper.
Mm-hmm. It's a good trick. And we've got a question from YouTube here. Are you using raw photos when you photograph?
Yes, I am. So the Adobe equivalent of the RAW is a RW. So this is straight from the camera itself, and I just put it import it into Lightroom. And
Nice.
it's always important to do so, mainly because you want the images to have as much information as possible. So let's say that this is obviously more like I'm kind of losing details here with around where it says pure grays. I want to be able to bring it back later with the details that I have.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when it comes to things like white balance, shooting in RAW just gives you so many advantages over shooting in JPEG.
Yes, Exactly, exactly. There's so many times that, like in the beginning of my career, I accidentally shoot a JPEG and the white balance was off. And that's how I learned my mistake. And because it can never go back ever again. I personally love my blacks a little muted. So wait, that's the white. Sorry. Black is on the other side. So I'm gonna lift that one up a little bit.
It's cool to see you using the tone curve here in Lightroom on these initial images.
Yeah. I just to kind of get the lighting I kind of want a little bit.
Yeah.
I am a Lightroom user first and a Photoshop user second, if you can't tell.
You power user. Yeah. For those of you guys watching out there who are familiar with Photoshop, the tone curve in Lightroom is actually very similar to the curves tool in Photoshop. So if you see something Winnie is doing and you want to translate that to Photoshop or a different program, usually there's a pretty good equivalent there as well.
So I'm kind of making some global edits. Let's take a look together a little bit. And a lot of it we can adjust later on too in Photoshop, but this is kind of a good start. I'm actually going to bring up the image a little bit. Actually, no, I'll keep it here. All right. What I'm going to do next is open this in Photoshop and kind of do more of the detailing there. So it's kind of the next step. I'll just open this up in Photoshop right here. The spinning wheel of death.
Totally. We've got a question from Robert in the chat.
Hey,
Robert's asking, yeah, is the gray card a plugin in Lightroom Classic?
No, the gray card is it's more for coloring to make sure you have the right color when you're shooting. So it's an in-person tool. It's like it's a literal card, gray card that you put on set. They just kind of make sure that it's like gray 50 or gray 15, I forget, to just make sure the colors look correct from the screen to what you see in real life.
Nice. And then you can use like the white balance sample tool to sample the gray card, and that should help with your white balance in the after photos.
Yeah. So if you ever get a photo that's a little more yellow and you see on your screen, but you're not sure if it's correct, it's always best to have that gray card to make sure like, okay, that is exactly what we're kind of seeing in real life.
Yeah, that's so nice. Do you have like a checklist that you take with you on set, or is it kind of like all memorized by now?
It's all memorized by now, but I definitely always make sure having gray card, always making sure the one thing I always am worried about is batteries, always having batteries, always having like my transmitter, always having, you know, the lights that I need. And then just going through the list of nitty gritty stuff that, and just always having extra in my backpack, just in case for anything. Yeah, a lot of times maybe for my lights, I'll make sure I bring the color tinting paper that I cannot remember the name of right now. Lots of different things. Oops, my bad.
Definitely. And are you using like continuous lights, or are you using strobe lights?
Strobe lights. So I have a couple of Godox lights that I use.
Nice.
And so I have those in my studio so that, and so sometimes they're so heavy, so I have them like set up already and just making sure that we have those.
Nice.
Right. Yeah, so I'm taking our first image here. So what I always debate is if I want to clean, I'm going to clean. I always debate if I should composite first and then clean up everything, or if I should clean up everything and then composite first. Sometimes I like compositing first, mainly because then I can clean up everything and look back at it a little bit later on. So I think I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, that's a good call. I usually do the same thing as well.
Yeah, because let's say if there's like little edits, I can just kind of blend them all in later on too. So what I will do here actually is I'm looking at the globe right here, and this is what I will edit. So what I usually do is I kind of grab my lasso tool, make a little fun polygon, create a duplicate, and bring it over to the file that I am editing on. So it's kind of like here, and it looks really bad right now because it's right now just right on top of the file. I didn't really edit anything, but I will adjust it so that I'll kind of adjust the layers. So right now we can't really see much of it, and I'll bring it back in slowly.
So you've got your brush tool right now, and you're just kind of painting white on the layer mask to
Yes. So you can kind of see
in.
here, yeah, that is kind of bringing it back so that we kind of have the details of it. And I'm just slowly going over it. One thing I might do here is adjust my brush to more 30% hardness so that the edges are less soft, less feathering.
Yeah. And
here.
Are you using a mouse for this, or a trackpad, or a tablet?
I am using, it's not a good practice, but I'm using my trackpad, but I also have a Y comb that I use as well. Sometimes when I'm doing more light, when I'm doing more detail adjustments, I like my trackpad for that.
Yes. Yeah, I use my trackpad quite a bit too.
Yeah, I think sometimes I'm always on the go, so I'm so used to using my trackpad to edit.
It's so true. Yeah, I've definitely transitioned to a much more like mobile editing situation.
Yeah. Or getting a tinier Y comb. So I'm just kind of doing this. I mean, what I could also do is use the path tool, but I sometimes like the detailness of getting all the little corners and just kind of brushing it off a little bit, cleaning it up now to what I want to see. Right here, just getting more. And sometimes when I don't like it, you know, I take little short brush strokes, and then if I don't really like that, I just undo and redo that again.
Right, rather than trying to like do the whole thing with one brush stroke.
Exactly. And it takes some patience. And I also think that it doesn't have to be too perfect because of the sphere itself is kind of fun. There. All right, we can kind of see the difference here from this to kind of this. So the one thing is right now it's at 100%. We'll see how it looks because I do like how the shadow is kind of cast onto here. So I might go in and actually change this back to 0% hardness. Maybe I will change my brush to 30% and just bring back some of that shadow a little bit. So then it kind of looks like it is still the shadow of this bottle still on here. You can tell from there, there's still a lot to clean up. As you can tell, there's that line, and then there are my strokes that I use. So I'll clean that up later on too with more detailed editing. All right, so that's one part of the globe. We're gonna go on to back to the file right here, which I'm going to grab this piece over here, the perfume bottle itself. This is the second image that I used earlier. Oops.
So you're making a duplicate to a layer and then hitting duplicate layer and then choosing the other document there.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Read my mind. And the beauty of the fact that I shot on a tripod is that everything's in the same place. So when I'm compositing, I know that it's going to be right on top of the image that I was working with earlier.
Nice.
So using my brush and adjusting it so that I can see the image below. Adjusting it, same thing here, adjusting my hardness to 30. And just bring back some of that a little bit. There we go.
Yeah, it's cool to see you do this with different photographs rather than just trying to like brighten it up in Photoshop.
Yeah. I think it makes a difference because I don't think I could ever get it super bright again, you know?
Definitely. And I feel like it looks a lot more realistic using the photograph rather than just trying to figure out how to make it brighter in Photoshop.
For sure. There are definitely times when I'm desperate. Let's say during a photo shoot, I do not remember to do it because when you're moving around so much and you're thinking of other things and you're talking to the client, trying to figure out what to do next, you always forget sometimes. And I have desperate times calls for desperate measures.
Definitely.
But the goal is always to try to get it close to possible in person. I might actually keep the ring here. The hardness too much. I'll adjust the hardness. Going a little bit tighter. Just bring this back a bit so you can kind of see a little bit underneath.
Cool. It's cool to see you use the brush tool for this. I feel like it's such an intuitive way to do it.
Yes, I would like to thank Queen of Clone Stamp and Healing Brush, and now the brush tool. Yeah, I can tell already brighten it up. It might be too bright for my taste. We might adjust it later so it's less bright. We can adjust that all later on with the final image as well. So that's kind of what it looks like right now, getting that piece. I'm going to bring in the third image where I lightened up the bottle itself. So in real life, this is more true to color. It's not usually the darker pink. So we just want to see what it kind of looks like. That over. Very cool. So same thing. I'm going to go in. I might actually take this part of the bottle. Take the whole bottle with me. Might as well.
Might as well.
Except for the top, because I've adjusted it from for duplicating it over to the file, the base file that we're working with. And it's copied over. Now I'm going to add the mask over here. Zooming in really closely. I think I might try this for a hot second. You know, sometimes I use a selection tool when I'm making adjustments really quick, and then I might just adjust the mask later. So right over here. And then what I do is when I make a huge selection, and because there's a contrast that stands out, it's really quick to do. And I just do Command I, invert it so that I get the whole piece. Oops.
Nice. Super quick and easy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to save the file really quickly so we don't lose any information. That's the one thing that I always forget is saving. Keep saving.
Yeah, thankfully, Photoshop is pretty stable, I would say, as a program. It doesn't crash for me very often at all. But yeah, always make sure to save your work. It's nothing's worse than you know, getting close to finishing a project and you lose all
everything
your work.
goes. So one thing I might do here is actually I might do slight the edges look a little rough to me, but usually I kind of go in and clean that up in post a little bit later on. But that looks really good. And then kind of take a look at the sphere and the bottle. To me, that looks good. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go in and edit these two in the back right here.
Cool.
Composite them in a little bit. I'm going to go back to my Lightroom, bring in the other files that I want to use. Bring that one over. Photoshop. All right, what we'll do here now is, you can tell this is our base file that we're working with. It's not really in focus. So I do want to make sure it's more in focus. So I'm going to bring that in with me. So I'm going to bring the whole bottle in.
Cool. And it's so cool to see workflow for this. And, you know, it just reminds me that there's so many ways to get the job done in Photoshop. There's no right or wrong way ever.
Never right or wrong way. Just working with, it's really, I think half the job with photography is being able to solve a problem on the spot.
Yes. Yeah. Constant problem solving.
There's always problems. But the beauty of it is there's more than one way to do it.
Always. Yes. And whatever works with your individual, you know, workflow and style, you know?
Exactly.
We've got a question from the chat here on Behance from Ferry. Is asking, is curious to know if you're using a medium format or a full frame camera.
I am using a full frame camera.
Which camera are you using for these pictures?
I'm using a Sony A7R3, I believe. I've had it for a very long time. Very long time. Really gets the job done. It's a huge file, which is great, so that if there are any details, I can adjust it. As you can tell here, I did the same thing as I did before, but you can kind of tell that the label is slightly off. So I am actually going to undo my mask. Bring in the file here. So sometimes when, let's say I accidentally kick the tripod, or let's say I might have shifted something while I'm shooting, it happens, is inevitable, not perfect, but I will go in at opacity 50%, bring in the file and just move the file until it's aligned again. So unfortunately, sometimes that happens with composite work.
Totally. That's a part of the job.
Yeah.
Have you ever used any of the automatic alignment tools in Photoshop?
No, I've never used that before.
Oh, they're so nice. You can
we should maybe try that again. Try that.
Yeah. Yeah. After you get to a point with this, if you want to, I can kind of talk you through it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do love that there are so many tools in Adobe that helps ease up, that makes our life so much easier.
Definitely. And you mentioned you were shooting with a macro lens as well. What macro lens are you using?
So Sony has a 90 millimeters. Love the 90 millimeters, and it was the only option too. And I personally love the macro look because of the way everything compresses. So I use it a lot for my work. So same thing here. Really, the goal for me is to bring back the text. So I may not even need to bring back the edges a little bit. Maybe a little bit. Maybe I do want the edge of it. It's always a little bit adjustment here. Clean that up a bit. Okay, cool. That looks good to me. I'm actually gonna see how the image looks here. I do like how bright the bottle is, so maybe I'll kind of lightly brush it over a little bit.
Yeah.
So what I usually do is maybe I will get an opacity of 20% of my brush and just kind of bring a bit of the coloring in the back so it's a little brighter. And it's only because I already have that file. Because if not, I will use levels, or maybe I'll use curves a little bit to bring it back. You can tell it's a little brighter, so we're going to close it. And now it's more in focus. Yeah, that looks good. Something else we'll do is, let me check the other file, kind of bring this into the next to the photo here. Use my brush again. change my opacity back to 100.
Nice. It's looking so good already.
Thanks. Let's see. And a lot of times, sometimes when the file doesn't align much, I might go in later and just clone stamp that a little bit.
Totally.
And then sometimes it's easier just to do the whole thing and then just use the brush tool, the black side, and just yeah. And cleaning up the sides as well.
Nice.
And then same thing as did before, I'm just gonna bring this line back in. Maybe that was a little too much, go a little bit. Use a smaller brush.
We've got a question from the chat from Ferry asking if you ever get underestimated by clients because of the camera or like the gear that you use.
No, I don't. A lot of times my clients don't know the difference between all the cameras.
It's a good point.
A lot of my clients are more focused on like the art direction, or they're more focused on really getting the job done. The photo, that's where we come in as experts, as a photography expert.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we are photography, our camera, actually, excuse me, our camera is only a tool. Our camera is only a tool that we learn to use so that we can create our best work. And for example, the Sony camera that I have, I've had it for 3-4 years already. And I bought it because it was like the next biggest thing. So I got it, but realizing that I'm still using it to this day, because that's the best work you'll create is knowing your tools, not getting the best tools, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Oh, I love how clean that cap looks right there.
Yes.
That looks so good. All right. And then now we're going to clean up this sphere right here. I'm going to pull my last image. The hardest part about compositing is losing track of which images that we haven't used. But it's also about looking at the image that is the base, and realizing that, okay, do I really need this? Because let's say I get the composite, or like, let's say I get the 6th, 7th, 8th image, right? Maybe I don't need it.
Right, yeah. Like if you're already happy with the image, good to go.
Yeah, exactly. Oops. And it happens. And then I use Command D to just undo it and start over.
Yeah. I'm curious here, would you use like the elliptical marquee selection to select out the...
Yeah, I could use that and just kind of go around it. But I find that it takes me longer to get it correct.
Can I give you a little keyboard shortcut that might help?
Yeah.
So if you click and drag it, just start a new click and drag. And you hold down the spacebar key while you click and drag, you can actually move it while you're creating it. And then if you let go of the spacebar, you can still change the shape too.
Love that. Let's try that.
So you can hold down the spacebar, move it to where you want it. Oh, but you got to keep keep pressing on your mouse or trackpad.
Wait, let's try that again.
That's the trick. So yeah, and then spacebar, and then just let go of the spacebar, but keep the click still pressed. I know it's a little complex to explain over there we go, and then just let go of the spacebar. There we go, and you can kind of like size it and move it as you go, using that spacebar trick. And then I find it's much easier to place the ellipse in the right place.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to know where to start with the ellipse tool because it just seems like very
It really is.
hard to control.
Yeah.
But with the spacebar technique, I find that I'm able to much better align it where I need to go.
That is so helpful. The spacebar, that's the trick. And look how spherical that looks. Love that trick. I actually might, since it's so spherical, I might actually just kind of make it a little bigger here to fit it inside the sphere and just adjust it a little bit.
You can hit enter, that like checkbox up there, and that'll apply that transformation.
Yeah. One thing I might do is actually just clean up this edge right here and might keep the sphere this way. Voila.
Nice.
Love that trick in my toolkit.
I always try to learn, like, you know, at least something small every now and then. It keeps me on my toes, you know?
That looks really good. I love that. That looks really good. The one thing I might do is same thing, shadow, bring this a little, keep this a little darker.
Definitely.
So I'll go back in, make my brush, change the opacity, maybe 30, see how it looks a little bit. We'll do one more stroke over. There we go. You can tell it's creating that shadow right through there. That looks really good. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, now that I've kind of laid out all the composite work, I'm going to go in and clean this up right here. Clean this up right here. This right here, my paper was very small, but I really like the texture. I don't know what this is. Clean that up. Just a little create this. So I'm just going to add a new layer. Go into, actually, maybe I won't go into a new layer. What I might do is, just create a new here. So what I did was Shift, Command, Option, E, and that all it does is kind of collapse just create one image from all the layers.
Nice. It's a great trick.
Really, I love the easy shortcuts for that. And what I might do is just highlight the areas that I want to fix. These are the big surfaces that I want to correct a little bit, and then we use content aware. So edit, content aware fill. And let's see what happens. So now Adobe is kind of like thinking about the Photoshop files, thinking about like, okay, what's around it? How can we clean it up? And you can tell this looks great. This looks great. This needs a little bit of work. Let's just adjust it, and then I'll see what it looks like in the big screen. So I commanded to create a new copy. And what I like to do is just turn this off. So maybe we'll work on this one a little bit. Actually, I'll work on the little details first. So I'll create a new layer, and I'll clean up the nitty-grittiness of certain things I don't like. I'm using the heel brush right now. So the heel brush, you know, sample a different area.
Yes.
I want to sample here. And the important thing about texture is you want to sample an area where the texture is the same. Otherwise, it looks a little like here.
Right. Otherwise, you get this.
Which is what we don't want.
Which is what we do not want.
No. I do like the little strobe like here. I might clean this up a little bit later, but right now we're just cleaning up the little things that we don't want.
Sometimes I have like stuff on my screen like on my laptop screen. I'm always trying to like heal it out. And I realize it's like a piece of dust on the actual screen. I'm like, oh my God, I'm
I've done
crazy.
that so many times. Or you're sitting by the window and it's a little reflective. And you're like, why is it reflective? I can't see my screen. Is that dirt?
I'm going crazy. Yeah, especially after staring at the computer for hours or what, you know.
Oh yeah. I feel like I do marathon editing where I just edit for hours and hours and hours. And then when I look up, I'm like, the real world is a different color.
Yeah, it's like blurry and like, where am I? Why do I feel so weird?
It's like, why am I mentally exhausted? I love to edit with like a good TV show. I'm that type of person where
That's what's up. Yes.
yeah, I know a lot of my friends do like podcasts. A lot of my friends have co-working sessions. I'm kind of a mix of co-working sessions and also late night TV show binge editing.
Yes. What are some of your go-to shows?
Ooh, I actually need a new show. I'm done with the current ones that I'm watching. But I had just finished Abbott Elementary.
Oh, I haven't
The
seen
first season. That one, it's a comedy. It's great. Oh, I must also note that I can only listen to comedy because
that.
otherwise, if it's drama, I can't focus. I was like, I'm focusing on the TV show. But
right.
yeah. So if you look at the image right now, I kind of cleaned up the little details of it, but it makes such a big difference because now we're focused on less of like the little light, hitting here and like the little dirt there. I think we're focused more on the bottles themselves. The hardest part about texture is getting it right. I think I'm going to take a shortcut and I'm just going to crop it out.
Always a good option.
Yeah, actually, I'll do that at the end. We'll do that later.
When in doubt, crop it out.
Yeah. But if I were to tackle this, I think I would probably have gotten a comped image of the paper and just extend it all the way. Additionally, I can also do that. It's just kind of get a cut out of here and then just kind of extend it all the way as well too.
Yeah, especially when you have that much detail, reproducing texture on that scale can be quite difficult.
Yes, I'm actually curious to know. I personally don't label my layers, but I'm curious to know if people label their layers or if they don't label their layers.
Yeah, let us know in the chat and give us some suggestions for new shows Winnie can watch also. She's looking for comedies.
So
I tend to just group similar layers and then I'll name the group. So I don't name the individuals, but like I would, in this case, I would maybe like group the first like 5 or 6 layers and just call that like comp or something like that. And then I would group the next series of layers and then call that like retouch or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, the best part about that is we can almost see what we did before and what it looks like after.
Exactly.
It looks so much brighter already.
Exactly. And I think it's, if the files are just going to be, if you're the only one working on your files and they don't ever get too complex, then I don't think there's any pressure to name layers or things like that. I find that when I hand off files to my clients, it really helps if I group everything and then label those just so they can kind of turn things off and on and know what is what.
Yeah. That's really true. I think it's a lot of times for myself, I'm reviewing the files internally with me, myself, and I. So I don't usually have to label it, but I've sat there many times going, what did I do here?
Yeah. Sam says, I definitely name the layers to cut down on stress deep into the file. I feel that, Sam.
Yes, that's really true. With comping, you definitely need that.
Yes. And Sammy says, go watch Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh, yes. That was really fun. Did love that. It's a very bizarre show, but it is really good.
It is very bizarre. I just rewatched the entire show recently as well. Kimmy Schmidt. I love it.
That's a good one. So right now what I'm doing is just really cleaning up the bottle a little bit. And love using heal and clone right here, just to kind of get that nice like gradient look to it here. So what I'm looking for really are little bumps, little spots that may not, whereas the bottle may not look clear. Maybe it's the light hitting it, maybe it's from a different layer, maybe it's something else. So like, for example, you can tell bottom right here, it's from the sticky. There's like a little bit of, the expiration date on the fragrance bottle. So what I'm gonna do is just clean that out a little bit as best as I can. So it looks a little smooth.
Definitely. And are you putting like sticky tape on the bottom of your like bottles and things like that to keep them in the same place, or are they just kind of set there?
Well, but they're so heavy, so they just stay there.
Yeah.
But let's say I was wiring something, so I would try to keep it as sturdy as possible.
Nice. Yeah, and then you can always clone that out, or if you have like a piece of fishing line or something like that, just take that out real quick.
So easy, fishing line. Sometimes I have done this in a shoot where I didn't have any of that, so I used a pair of chopsticks from lunch.
Nice. Good trick. Why not?
In order to kind of like wire fruit or something, or I don't have fish wire, but I do have chopsticks.
Right, problem solving, like you said. Like, what else is around here?
All about problem solving. So yeah, you can kind of tell here, got rid of like that weird light reflection. It's a little cleaner, not my best work, but it's a little cleaner there.
Yeah, definitely better.
And then same here. And then I'm gonna blend this a little bit.
Nice. And this is all with the healing brush tool.
All with the healing brush, my go-to. Yeah, that looks really good. I like that. That looks really good. You can tell there's a bit of repetitiveness here, so I might just pull from here and just redo that a little bit. And just clean this up a bit. Yeah, that looks good. Same thing here. Got a little bit of like, it's from the light before. Then we clean this little spot here.
Yeah, that's nice. It makes a big difference. Just nice and simple.
Let's do that one again. Oh no, I made it worse. Always happens. All right, that looks good. Only takes a couple of tries sometimes. I will keep this light because I do kind of like that. And then we'll do the same thing up here.
Yeah, with all those little like specks and things like that.
It really is. All the little things that maybe I forgot to clean up. Maybe there was like, what I love looking at later when I'm retouching is, my hair got on there.
Oh no.
Cleaning it up. But all we're doing here is really clone and healing. I'm just kind of going through the image and just cleaning up any spots that we see.
Do you ever use like compressed air or anything like that to clean off the stuff before you photograph it?
This is the perk of working with a prop stylist sometimes, is they do that for me because I don't remember.
Right.
Because I'm thinking about the photo itself and they'll do it for me. But what's great is, when we have a little bit of, cleaning the camera sensor, the little rocket thing. So we can always use that in order to just clean little details if needed.
Yeah, that's nice. Just like squirt some air on something.
Yeah. Microfiber cloth is my best friend sometimes, just getting dust off of things. And I also have cats. So the hardest part is finding cat hair later. Randomly ends up in my studio, of course. And I would just everywhere and just clean up the cat hair. We don't have any of that here today, but
it's a thing.
But yes, that looks really good. Same thing to the bottle. What I might do is clean this little funny thing.
We got a question from the chat. Barry's asking us, where did you learn product photography?
I learned product photography being stuck in my home during the pandemic.
There we go. Good thing to learn.
Nothing else to do. So I got some skincare that I had lying around at that time because we are very much invested into skincare during 2020.
Yes.
And I had just gotten my strobe lights right before the world closed. And from there, I started just playing around. Literally, if you can see, I have a dresser right behind me in my home. And I just started shooting from there and just started practicing. Actually, went to a Behance Live to learn more about product photography.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Well, hey, look at that.
Full circle.
Full circle. Maybe someone in the chat becomes a product photographer after this broadcast.
If you do, let me know. So what I'm gonna do now is still cleaning the bottle cap just to kind of give it some depth. So you can kind of tell between the old image right there, you're getting reflection of the corner, cleaning that up. And like recognizing that, recognizing that takes a little bit of time, but that's kind of what I look for when editing. Same thing right here. I'm gonna set this actually to 30. Clone, just getting the edge right there. I'm gonna undo that and do it again. Sometimes when I do like the edits that I'm making, I might just go into like mask and just mask it out. Like for example, just this.
Yeah.
Go to the black, set the opacity to 100, and just go over it the other way. Same results instead of undoing it.
Yeah.
That really clean. Makes a huge difference.
Perfect. Oh yeah, it really does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really cleans up the bottle a little bit. So this is looking decent to me. We're now going to go to the right perfume. So I'm going to call this left perfume bottle. And it's going to be right.
Are these actual products as well? These Amazing Grace?
Yes, they're real products. They're this is not for a client, but they're very popular perfume bottles they get at Sephora.
Nice.
They smell great. Yeah, and all I'm doing is same thing as before. You can tell there's that sticker right there.
Yeah.
It's better than having the words. Editing the words are worse than just cleaning it up here. So that's something to look out for during the shoot. I'll just kind of this one might be a little, this one I'm just gonna undo that a little bit. It might be a little harder that way, so I'm just gonna clean it up this way.
Yeah, it's a pretty big area to remove.
It is. I think the best thing about it is that it's clear, so we could just kind of blend it in somehow. It is a little blue, so maybe potentially I could change the hue a little bit. Because you could tell the sticker part's a little blue, but here it's a little beige. So we can always change the color a little bit after we clean this up a bit. This might not be my best job because when in doubt, I just move on to another area.
Totally. That's the best way to do it. Yeah. Just like, let's find something easier. I'll come back to this hard part.
Yes, exactly. Looks good.
I feel like we've all been there.
I'm going over that a little bit. Is that? Oh, it's a little cleaner.
Definitely.
Yeah. Sometimes we have a tool that we use and maybe doesn't work. We can always just change it to something else. You can always try a new tool to kind of do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually go between the spot healing brush tool, the regular healing brush tool, and the clone stamp tool for this sort of thing.
Same. And the hardest part is there's no way to clean it up in person.
Right, yeah.
To avoid it. I do shoot. Yeah, exactly. I do shoot with post in mind, so that I am aware of like what I need to edit later on.
Do you write like little notes and things like that? Kind of remind yourself?
Yes, yeah. Like, so after a photo shoot, I'll just like send myself an email just to remember kind of what we talked about. I don't know if I can get rid of it, but at least when I can't get rid of it, I just try to make it as uniform as possible. So for example, we have this like strip right here of just blue. I'm just going to extend it all the way so that at least it's it's a little more uniform and doesn't look out of place. Just kind of like that. Just yeah, perfect. And that same thing to the other side. A little blue. Perfect.
There we go. That looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll just get rid of the blue hue a little bit. Cool. And go to other parts of the bottle a little. And this part right here.
Yeah, it is a lot of detail work.
It is a lot of detail work a lot of times with product. Especially because once you see, you can't unsee it and you just
right.
Clean it up. It's quite in depth.
Yeah, I feel like it takes a special type of person to enjoy retouching and cleaning things up.
It's quite satisfying too.
It is satisfying.
It's very satisfying because then I'll like zoom out, you know, as I'm editing, and I'll go to the image that we kind of worked with.
Yes.
And then looking back at it, I was like, wow, it looks a lot better.
Yes.
It's very satisfying.
Kathleen says, yes, Winnie, you're so talented.
Hi, Kathleen.
She says, stunning photo and retouching skills.
She's so sweet. And then there's obviously some dust, and I'm just going to clean off the dust a little bit until there's dust here. I think I did a pretty good job cleaning this during the photo shoot.
Yeah,
that's the dust flying around.
Yeah, all those little like light reflections and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes they're really pretty and I'll keep them on. Sometimes I find them distracting from the overall photo. Yeah. And I just take them apart. Here it is. Pieces. And sometimes I could spend hours just editing one image.
Yeah,
because there's so many, with product photography, there's so many details.
So much, and kind of get in your flow, and you know,
next thing you know, it's dark out.
Yeah, really, it's like, oh boy, how did that happen?
Good. I think at one point we'll move on, because we won't be able to get all the details of everything. But I would spend the majority of my time really just going through and cleaning up every little thing here. We didn't even get to the other side of the bottle, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll do it quickly.
It's good to see the process, you know, and it's good to know that that it does take some time, and you know that it's just kind of like part of the overall, you know, creating an image. You know, I feel like it's easy to look at a photo and be like, oh, it's so clean and beautiful and perfect, you know, and think that that was done just all in camera, but it's you know, usually a combination of a bunch of different tools and techniques that gets that result.
It really is. It really is. I'm going to clean up at least the label, and then we can move on. And I'll kind of show you guys the before and after. So we zoom out a little. Looks like before we did anything. And then after we added the comps, after we did the detailing, every little detail kind of adds up and creating this. What I'm going to do next is just do some global edits to this. So for example, I usually will maybe brighten up certain areas. So I just grabbed a curve layer, just kind of lifted up the curve a little bit so that it's brighter. And I'm just gonna look at certain areas and just kind of go through it. Either, oh wait, one thing I do want to do is clean up this bottle right here. So let's go back to B, because that really makes a big difference.
Yeah, when you did the other one, it really did make a big difference.
Then I'll go back to curves.
And this is the clone stamp tool now?
Clone stamp. I'm just getting a nice curve right here.
I'm guessing you've become quite familiar with the clone stamp and the heel tool.
Very much so. I kind of want to know, where is everyone tuning in from? And what do you do product photography or other kind of photography, or
yeah, let us know in the chat. Where are you guys coming in from? Kathleen says, you have so much patience.
Yeah, that really makes a big difference.
Yeah. Ashley asks, how do you pay attention to all of these details?
That's a good question. Lots of patience. Part of it is just I'm gonna try to make the bottle line straight.
Okay,
I don't like nice curves. And I think that really makes a big difference as well too. And it really is about when you see the final image, it really makes a big difference, and that really motivates me. And that's hard because I haven't created the final image yet.
Right.
But I know what I want it to look like, and I know the only way to get there is to just keep editing.
Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah. Sometimes what I'll do is grab this right here, kind of create that line that I wanted. create a little box around it and just make a big brush and then go.
Nice. So we've got Robert is joining us from Sweden. Ferry's from Indonesia. Ashley is in New York and New York City. Kathleen is in Westchester, New York. So we've got people from all over the place. And Kathleen is a creative director for fashion and lifestyle brands, conceptualizing and producing photo shoots and social media campaigns.
Kathleen's great.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think the hardest part sometimes when I create that straight line, it might be too straight.
You're right, yeah.
And I have to go back and like, okay, let me just clean up the lines a little bit.
Too perfect.
Too perfect.
Yeah. And Emily is joining us from Brooklyn.
Yay, welcome back, Emily. Some of these are my friends for supporting.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So great. So good. It's always good to have a good friend group to come and support you.
So yeah, so I love that. That looks really good. So I always love seeing the before, seeing the after. One last thing, cleaning. Actually, I kind of really like this. One thing I'll kind of adjust here is brightening up certain images, darkening certain images, so I can kind of get it to the level that I want. So here I have my curves tool. I've brightened up the image. I've raised the curve a little bit so that I can kind of go into my mask and just highlight the areas that I want. I usually start off with a 20%, kind of go light. Maybe here it might be too dark, but not much. And then maybe this area is a little dark. That way. I want this to be more even, so we'll kind of go in and just. You can kind of tell there was that line right there. So I completely undo it, make my brush a little bigger. There we go. That brings it up immediately a little bit. I know the bottles are not the same level of brightness, so I'm going to go in and just kind of brighten up overall. And just certain areas where I'll kind of brighten up certain areas a little bit. A little darker, start bringing it up here. There. Same thing with the top here.
That's cool. Makes a big difference.
It really makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Then I'll go the other way where I'll darken certain areas.
Okay.
And kind of darken right here a little bit.
Nice and subtle. Cool.
Exactly. I think that's why my images are so clean, is I do a lot of detailed lighting work later in post to make sure it's a little more even.
Yeah, I can see that. It makes a really big effect too. Yeah, kind of brings the image just like closer in dynamic range a little bit. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah. So you still have.
Yeah, I like that. That looks really good. This cap has been bothering me. It feels too bright. So I'm going to go in back to the comp a little bit. Which one it is, not that one, that one. And what I'm going to do is actually go to my curves tool, just only edit that and just it. So it's not as bright.
Oh, that works really well.
Yeah. And then I don't like that it affected this as well. So what I'll go in is just mask out that part. So the hardest part about going back in and editing when the comps is if I already retouched this part, you'll see it a little bit. Totally. So you just have to be conscious of that. Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's good to know it's kind of like a work in progress, so you don't have to get it like perfect at every step.
Yeah, Exactly. All right. Okay. So this is kind of close to what I would love. I mean, if I had more time, I would definitely edit a lot more details, but that's fine as well. What I might do is darken some of the text so that they're a little more black. So what I'll do is go to selective color. I'll go to blacks. I'm gonna scale it up a bit. As you can tell, all the blacks are getting a little darker. And I'll invert it. And I'll just kind of go over certain areas so that it darkens a little bit.
Cool.
So this is all about, you know, since it's more, I do a lot more like product commercial work. So the whole idea is you want to make sure the text looks really great.
That makes sense. Yeah. You got to be able to read the product name.
Yeah. So I can tell it's like slightly a big difference, but it's a little sharper, a little darker.
Definitely.
And even to add up on that, I can do this manually. So where I'm going to get all the images again, Shift, Command, Option E, get also that now I've kind of had one layer with all the layers collapsed together, kind of go into filter, like to go to high pass. I haven't done this in a while because I just set up an action.
I know, right? Those actions are so nice.
It makes, because once I start realizing there's certain things I do a lot of, it's easier just to make an end to a action. So really even for my global edits, I'll show you guys later. So I usually do, I think around 10. As you can tell, what it does is just sharpen all those. And kind of go into here and then do overlay. So this is without the height. So really sharpens the image, but I don't want it looking too cartoonish. So maybe 10 was a little intense. So I'll do to 20%.
Nice.
Yeah, you can really tell, especially with the amazing grace, the pure grace, without it, and then with it. Yeah. Next, so with actions, there's a lot of, I guess you can't tell. So with my global edits, I kind of, what we just went through with the curves, I have that as a global edit. So immediately makes adjustments and I just kind of go through it myself. Same thing with sharpening image. I have high pass save so that sharpening, and I call it sharpen image so that I can kind of get all the images really sharpened when I need it. So it's kind of where I'm at. And then this is the part where I know that I am close to done. I'm going to keep it as a square to fit everything in. And just getting rid of the corner.
That looks really good. Wow.
Yeah, this is kind of like the final image a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
that looks
pretty.
Really good. This is kind of where we started from. And this is what it looks like after. Yeah.
Well, it looks like you just took like a flashlight and shined it on. It made it so much brighter and nicer.
Yeah. I mean, if I was on set and I had like the extra time and the extra lighting, you know, I would have definitely done that. Just brighten up this a little bit and just overall, but sometimes depends on time. So let me not save any of these. But do save this control.
Yes, do save this one. Wow, it's such a big difference. Wow, it didn't even take like that long too. A lot of like detail work with healing and clone stamping, but it paid off. And I really like what you did with the caps of the bottles as well, with the clone stamp tool kind of coming down and removing some of those reflections. Really clean that up quite a bit.
Yeah, really is distracting. If I, you know, and then in post too, maybe I'll clean this up, make it more of a curve. Maybe I'll like get more of an edge here and like clean the little aberrations a little bit, you know. But those are kind of things that I would look to do in post-production. And if we go back to Lightroom, the file should be there. So this is like the finish. This is kind of what we started with. This is actually what we started with before
Whoa.
before we edit the white balance. Then we color corrected it here. Then we went into Photoshop and did detailed work. And that's kind of where we
Wow.
put everything together. So like I personally will be putting this in my portfolio. I really love how
Yes.
it looks. Yeah, so that's that. And then we just kind of this is the image before and the image after.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, so great.
Yeah. Does anyone have any major questions for me? Maybe we could take like a 2-second pause for that.
Yeah, everyone says the crop is great. That really made a big difference. And yeah, everyone's just so excited about the image. Love it, love it, love it.
I think
Yeah,
what I
thanks.
would do later on too is there's not enough space here. There's so much space here. I wish I could expand that later. That's just stop thinking through.
Yeah, maybe content aware Phil could possibly do that.
Yeah, yeah. I do have a couple of other images that I have prepped as well too.
Fantastic.
So kind of go similar look right here. I use the same products to kind of create a different look as well. I think the beauty about having different props is you can style a different way, create a different image because you can change the angle, you can change the layout,
Yes.
This one is not, the edits won't be as detailed as the other image, but same thing is you can tell that first things do, as we've done before, we're going to go into Lightroom to color correct, fix the white balance, fix the lighting adjustments, bring it into Photoshop and get the nitty gritty details of it. So,
Nice.
but I'll review the photos that I have that in order. So what I was thinking about when I was shooting to make sure to get certain comps. So this is the image, the base image we're going to work with today. It's a little blue. It's a little, you can tell that this pink is not the same pink as what we worked with before. Right. So we'll definitely do some color adjustments there. And then right here, I actually adjust this. So I kind of want a bit of more deeper color on the cap. Right there. And then same thing right there. I wanted the cap. I really wanted to get that nice, clean look to it. And then I came in here in order to get a fun, kind of like a shadow right here to just kind of play with the image later. And then right here is for the spheres, just to kind of get like a fun look on the spheres right there so that it's not, because the sphere is reflecting what's above it, right? So I wanted to kind of make sure that it's a little more uniform color. We'll see how that looks. It might not look good.
It's good to have the shots though. You can use them if you need and not if you don't.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then here you can tell I use a foam border to kind of get this, because you can tell here because of the way the light hits it, it's actually blown out completely. So I grabbed a whiteboard and just placed the light there and said, hey, we're going to use that as our edge for the bottle.
Nice.
All right. Okay, let's get started.
That's great. Do you want to try the stacking and the auto image align tools?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it for this image. I think it'll look really good. Let's try that.
Cool.
So let me first color correct it on Lightroom, then we can bring it to Photoshop, right?
Yeah, good call. Yeah.
Love that. So I did not use a gray card here. I couldn't find the photo, but I'm gonna use because this is the same background and the same table. I know that I can still use the same gray card from the last image. So
cool.
I will use this, go over there and sync the settings, check none, just white balanced. Instantly looks a lot warmer, looks more true to life. Go into develop mode, same thing, top, bottom, go adjust the exposure. I will brighten it up a little bit. I will lower the highlights just a little, shadows just a little bit. bring out the whites a little. And then just the blacks. Up the clarity. I usually like around, oh, that's too much. Maybe it was 10.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I usually have everything kind of saved. So I've user presets like done so that I can just adjust it as I needed to.
Yes.
Because I recognize how I shoot.
Right.
So that
yes.
I can adjust it later on and just save myself some time. So you can tell, since I've used the presets, that I already have the clarity, I adjusted vibrance, same thing. The tone curves already adjusted, and everything else a little bit. I'm just going to put these to 0. Cool. All right, kind of like what we're doing here. Just going to do a overall sync on everything and just
nice.
Bam. Cool.
Yeah, looks good. Big difference.
Looks good. Yeah. Okay. Ready for you, Aaron. Teach me your ways.
Okay, cool. So I like to just go back to like grid mode. I think you can do it here, but I usually do it with grid mode. So I'd like to hit G for grid mode or hit that. And then you can actually like shift click all of the images that you want to open in Photoshop. So if you shift click them all, and then you can right click on those, and then you can go to edit in right there, and then you can say open as layers in Photoshop right there. So I'll do that sometimes, and then it'll just kind of like put them all into the same document for me. And it's like, you can see it's kind of like working. It's kind of putting everything together, which is just can save you some time. I know you have a great workflow with like copying from one image to the other. In this case, because they're already in the same document, I guess you could use just like layer masks to mask things in and out. But I think the nice thing about this is the auto align. So once these are all together, there we go, almost done, I guess.
Almost. Oh no, that is everything.
Oh, that's
this
them.
is
okay.
Just the other image. I'll close that out.
Fantastic. So now you can shift click all of your layers, and then I believe it's in edit, and then you can go down to where it says auto align layers right there. And then I usually just keep that on auto. It works really well, and hit OK.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that like moves subtly or is like in a different place, it'll move, but it'll also warp and skew and transform to keep everything like in the same place.
Yeah. The funniest thing is I use this when I create stop motions. Because a lot of times, it's the same concept. You're putting a lot of layers together so that you can make sure it looks seamless.
Definitely. Yeah. And then I think if you just like turn those layers off and on, hopefully they're all in like pretty much the same place. So hopefully make your job easier if you want to like mask things in and out. And
yeah,
you can see it did move some layers around and everything looks pretty well aligned.
That's great.
Not perfect, but pretty well.
Pretty close. If anything, we can just shift it later too.
Definitely.
So what I will do is this is my base layer. So I'll put that on the bottom, and everything else I'll just kind of turn it off for now.
Yeah.
Go in.
And one more keyboard shortcut. If you hold Alt or Option and click on that layer mask, it'll make a black layer mask.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So one thing is, a lot of times during the auto line, I'll just crop it in a little bit so that I know what I'm working with. A little bit of just like that.
Nice. Cool. That's so beautiful.
Cool. Thank you. Oh, wait, we still have some on the top a little bit. I'll just adjust that a little bit. I either crop it in or I can fill it in later, whatever. I think here we have some luxury of cropping it in because the image is so wide.
Yeah, and those images are so large and detailed. You can really you can really crop it and you still have a ton of information.
Exactly, exactly. Especially with like my Sony camera itself, there's so much information there. Right. So this is the image where I was adjusting the bottle cap right there. So let's do that. Let's just go from bottom top. Same thing as you mentioned, we'll kind of use, I'll just use the auto select and see if it works out. It's close, it's close, it's doing its thing. Look at the whole cat.
Wow, cool.
A little rough, but let me do that. Actually, let me undo that. What I like to do here sometimes is smooth out the border a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I mask it, it's sometimes smoother. Maybe that wasn't enough. And I'll just undo this part here. And maybe I'll just kind of.
I got one more keyboard shortcut for you if you're interested in it.
Yeah. Teach me everything, Aaron.
So sometimes with the brush tool, like if you wanted to like brush the edge of that, you know, obviously because it's on a diagonal, it would be pretty hard to like just draw a perfect straight line. But if you hold shift, so if you click on the top of it and then hold shift and then click on the bottom of it, it'll actually draw a perfectly straight line between
this, right?
Oh, just with the regular brush tool, actually.
I just tried that. Brush.
So you could
click down first.
Yep.
Shift.
Click.
Then...
Oh, sorry. So you can just click on your first point, just like click, and then hold shift and then go to your next point and then click, and it'll draw a straight line between those 2 points.
Oh, that looks really good. I think I need a smaller brush. Let's see. Let's actually set this to 40. Like, nope. Nice.
Nice. And then you could even do like with black on the outside of it, and then that would clean your line up there. Especially when you have these like straight lines, I feel like that helps quite a bit.
It helps so much. Saving me so much time. There we go. Oh, that looks so good.
Nice.
Makes such a big difference. I might try to brighten these up a little bit later too, because it's a little gray, I would say right now.
Yeah.
And then here, let's see what's happening. I'm actually gonna leave the sphere for last. And then here is the extra line right here. So what I'm gonna do is just grab my brush, set it to 0, so the feathering is a little softer, and then just hover over here a little bit, get that line.
Nice.
That's great. I'm just gonna, just in case, just like that. So you can always add things in later, so then it kind of creates a little bit more fun shadows.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
It does. I also believe that the next one is, oh yeah, you can see things shifted just a little bit, but that's fine. What I'm gonna do is create that line over here right now with this next photo. Let's try that. Go. Oh, it's pretty aligned. That's awesome.
Nice.
That's great. So you can tell this is kind of the color we're going for, but this is a little muted right here. So we'll adjust that later. All right, this is also the file which, check this file. So one thing I do suggest is writing down the file names and what I want to comp, because now I'm looking at it later, like I don't remember exactly what I was doing here.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That your original workflow worked really well for that because you could kind of see the whole images.
Yeah. Let's see. I know one thing I want to do is brighten up these a little bit, but I'm trying to figure out which image I put it in. I think it was this one. Yeah, so this one as well. Kind of go in and just brighten up the logo a little bit. I'll actually just use a brush and just gloss over it. Oh yeah, you can tell there's like a bit of shift.
Right.
So
yeah.
I'll
Just
set
a little
it
bit.
at 100 instead. Let me see what that looks like. Now, I think what I'm going to do is, it's funny because this is fine, but this is not. I think I'm just going to undo that. And this, for this image, it's bright enough that I can just use curves later and brighten it up a little bit and bring back the pink, because I don't want to lose that. That's really key, is I don't want to lose the darkness of the color, but I do want to bring out the overall image a little bit. So we'll leave that for last.
Nice.
This, I think we're going to do the sphere.
Cool. It's so cool to do that.
It's very transformative. So fun. It kind of looks like a crystal ball.
It does. Where did you get those spheres?
I got it on Amazon.
Nice, yeah.
But alternatively, there are some shops here in New York that you can get acrylic spheres. And that's really what you look up. I know like there's one in Chinatown called like Canal Street that also sells like acrylics. You can always recommend getting it there too.
Nice.
The hardest part about acrylics, they scratch easily, so gotta take good care of them. I actually really do like the way they look. This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think half the time with photography is about, when it comes to propping, at least before I started working with stylists and it was just me, I would have to find all these myself, figure out where to get them. And sometimes half the battle is being creative and using things that never would be related to photography, but like the chopsticks.
Yes.
One thing you can tell is I use little putties to make sure that the sphere didn't roll. You couldn't tell the other image because of the angle we shot in, but because this is more head on, you can see these. So definitely need to edit those out later too. And you can tell here, it shifted.
Oh, that's what that is. That makes sense.
And it happens, you know, it happens, and you just need to fix it up a little bit. But I just love the overall kind of look that we got here.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
So yeah, so that's kind of before and then after.
Cool.
And there's a lot of things we can do here in terms of editing a little bit. So same thing. I will group all these together and call it comp. I start a new layer, and this will just be like dust. And this is where I go in and I just edit all the little, you know, things that were stuck in my camera sensor, edit that out, edit this out, you know, I don't know what's going on here, edit that out. And then these monstrous things too. These are going to be the hardest about these is because some of them are in shadow, some of them are in light. So it's going to be a bit of an estimating. And we'll kind of quickly go through that before we end today's.
Perfect. And we've got just about 20 minutes, a little less.
Let's see if I can. We probably won't be able to finish this. Oh, I'll just edit for like the next 10 minutes as quickly as I can.
Perfect.
And then whatever we get done, we kind of get done.
Yep. There we go.
Does anyone have any questions for me? Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. What do you guys want to? What do you want to learn? So fun. I feel like it's very calming and peaceful and like cathartic to do the little retouching.
The little details. You can really start from anywhere on, as long as I always kind of go left to right, up to down, Or I go to the areas where I see the most problem and I start from there.
Yeah, no right or wrong way to do it for sure.
No. I think the hardest part is kind of like what we mentioned earlier is actually knowing what to edit, figuring out the parts that, because another photographer or retoucher might edit it a little differently.
It's so true.
Not even just the methods, but what they're editing.
Yes, or even like the photos that they choose as like the main image or the base image.
Yeah, exactly. It really varies.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'll sometimes finish a photo shoot and then show images to some friends, and their favorite images are usually different from my favorite images from the same shoot.
Yeah. I've definitely had that happen to me before too. And I think that's the beauty of being an artist, is that we all have different loves and interests and what drives us, and I think that's what creates great stories. You don't get that a lot in commercial, but all my friends who do a lot of editorial work, you do see a lot of beauty in it. This is one of those parts where I'm editing the corner and realizing it is my computer screen. Keep going over that corner. Why isn't it going away?
Yes.
Super fun. These are the little dusters. I think I got them all.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I'll get to these little.
Yeah, the hard part.
The hard part. Okay. Let me just clean this up. Looks good. All right. I'm going to go to my hand-dyed clone stand.
Nice. Yep. It's a tool for the job for sure.
Yes. And we'll tackle this together.
Yeah.
Curious to know how. And so the way we kind of look at the image, we see this bright part, a little bit of color, this gray part, a little bit of color. So I'm trying to extend that all the way as if it was still curving. So that's what I'm trying to do with my clone stamping.
Yeah, that's definitely tough. I wonder, it's looking great already. Yeah, looking really good.
Good to know. I never really know until I'm done with the image. A couple of ways too is I could potentially cut this part out and then rotate it. I've done that before for my shoots.
Totally. wonder what the spot healing brush tool or the content aware fill would do.
Yeah. I wonder if it'll recognize the curves, you know? Try that.
Yeah.
Let me see. I wonder if it would recognize anything at all. Maybe not that big of an area. Maybe something like this.
Nice.
So I do want to just kind of get the curve.
Yeah, interesting result, maybe. Not perfect just yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's really working. So I'm just gonna cancel it.
I agree. I agree.
But we tried it just to see. Because it really does work wonders sometimes.
Yes.
It's good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I use clone stamp to kind of get the visuals I like, and then healing brush as more like a gradient, easing the sharper lines back into the overall image.
That's a good way to do it.
Okay, it's really forming. That looks really good.
It's coming together.
Mega impressed with myself right now.
That's a hard job to do for sure.
Cool. That looks good. All right, zooming out a bit. Can't even tell.
Yes.
No, that looks really good. I am very, very impressed. All right, these, we'll see. So I'm using clone stamp right now.
Nice, that looks good.
Kind of get that. And since this area is a little darker, I'll use this to get this. So I know that's a really stark line, but this is where the healing brush comes in. I'm just gonna go in and do a little bit of healing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll use a bigger brush actually. Because when you zoom out, the whole point is that it's gonna look like a gradient anyways.
Exactly.
And what I'll do is, you can tell I accidentally healed some of that. So I'm just gonna clean that up. Circles, spherical areas are always really hard.
So hard. Looking good though.
That looks really good.
There we go. Nice.
Yeah. That actually looks really good. I'm gonna leave it like that.
Perfect.
And then this one might be a little tricky. I always say it's tricky and then I get it done.
Right. And you like do it perfect your first try and you're like, oh, okay, never mind. I'm good.
Good. Yeah.
That looks good.
That looks really good.
Yeah, good job with the healing brush tool. That worked really well.
Yeah. And then I'm just gonna get rid of that stark line a little bit. And we'll keep the strobe light a little. I think it gives it like that cartoon 3D depth when I have the strobes on the side, the light right here.
It's really cool.
Otherwise, I could just Photoshop it out, but I like that.
I like it too.
Good. The one thing I do want to note is like the background is a little it was bending a little bit. So I can kind of adjust. I can always adjust that by not doing that. Lifting the curves a little bit.
Yes.
And just going over. I learned this because I was watching someone edit skin. And this was the way that they would edit skin. And I was like, I can apply this to product photography.
Yes.
And immediately you can tell that the background is a little more even.
It is, definitely. Yeah, it's so great to learn a technique from, you know, one application and then translate it to whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Same tool, still Photoshop, but it was just a little, but it's used in a different capacity.
Exactly.
And then tell immediately that a little bit. It's also brightening up a little bit because I use the brighter curve. What I'm going to do now is go to the other curve.
Nice. That's working really well to even it out.
Yes.
Nice. And we've got about 5 minutes today. We need just a heads up.
Yeah. Any last minute questions, anyone?
Yeah, let us know in the chat. And thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. It's been awesome having you here.
You can tell it's evening out a little more. So what I mentioned last time was, I'm going to label this as background.
Nice. Yeah, that looks way even. Looks really good.
Oh yeah. And I'm going to use this to brighten up the overall image. You know, I mentioned earlier that I wanted to brighten this up a little.
Nice.
Not exact, which is fine.
Right.
Good. And then I'm going to button this. What I will do is I'll use hue. I'm gonna figure out what that is and just lower that a little bit. This is not the best way to do it. Sometimes it gets the job done.
We do what we got to do, right?
It's true. No, it's not brightening up as much as I thought. I'll just go back to curves. This is my speed editing. Same thing on this side.
Nice. This looks so good.
Brightening up a little bit. So this is the before.
Wow.
This is the after.
Cool.
Just really brightens up the whole image. Same
I love it.
Before. And then after. I mean, there's a lot more we can do here. I will also crop this as well. Well, let's sharpen the image. So
good call.
This is the sharpening image tool in action. This is before the sharpening, after the sharpening. Just kind of gives a little judge. Crop it into a square.
That's beauty. I love the light and the shadow on the floor. Really nice touch.
So it really adds a little bit of an interesting element to it.
Definitely.
Yeah, so as much as we're comping the bottles themselves to look great, we can also add different light. We can always set it up a certain way, and then we can move our lights a little bit and then create maybe fun shadows and add that in post, you know?
It's so cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
that
this is
looks
kind of,
so great, Winnie.
yeah, before and then after. You can tell the whole image is brightened up a little bit. It's really good. I cleaned the background
Wonderful.
bit, and I forgot about safe.
Can you tell everyone what we're going to be learning tomorrow?
Yeah, so very similar technique and sense of photo compositing for product photography. But what we will be editing tomorrow is this more of a movement,
Oh,
more of
cool.
something with a little bit more action. So we've got some water drops here and how I'm going to compile them all together to kind of create the pretty image.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Winnie. And thank you so much for everyone joining us in the chat. We're going to be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific for part 2 of Compositing Product Photography with Winnie. Stick around for this week's Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Claddy from Print My Soul. Claddy is awesome. You're going to love it. And following the Creative Challenge, join Danny Vo for graphic design live stream and learn how to efficiently create packaging design. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you soon.